Aloha friends and welcome back. Today we'll be talking about advantages and disadvantages of living in rural Hawaii.
Today's video is specifically for those who are interested in country living, growing their own food, and producing their own power. These are some matters that we're often asked about, these advantages and disadvantages, and we thought we'd make a video for you.
Yes, so first let's start with advantages. One of the first ones, it's easy to grow plenty of food year-round.
This was something that's really important to us and to many of you out there. And rural Hawaii is an amazing place for growing your own fruits and vegetables. The variety is really unparalleled. There are literally hundreds of varieties of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, etc. It's really amazing.
So some of you are probably wondering, do we have distinctive seasons here in Hawaii?
Well, for the most part, we have a dry season and the wet or the rainy season. And so that's the major distinction. We do have warm weather all year round. Now, realize that Hawaii is a big place. There are many islands. And on this island, there are so many different climate zones that you would not expect being a tropical location. For example, we have snow-covered mountains, we have deserts, we have rainforests, yeah, we have the beaches.
So everything in between.
Right. So to simplify things, you have the warm and dry summer, and you have the still warm and a little bit wetter winter time.
So we do have two distinctive seasons of the year, but do we have different seasons for different plants or fruits or vegetables?
Well, it really depends on what it is you're growing. If you're talking about things like bananas, pineapples, papayas, those are going to bear depending on their maturity or when it is you planted them, right? So all throughout the year. But many other things do have seasons, and some of them have repeated seasons. Like, for example, some things may bear 2 or 3 times a year.
Yes.
And other things you may just have that bear only in the winter or only in the summer. But there is plenty of variety, so you can have lots of fruits ripening all year long.
All the time. Another advantage of growing here in Hawaii, in rural Hawaii, is that it's very easy to propagate plants.
Yeah, so a lot of things can be grown just by cuttings. So many fruits and vegetables can be propagated this way. Other things can be grown easily from seed. And then there's a whole other category of fruit trees that are best grafted. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of use some of all of those methods.
Yes. So another advantage that has to do with growing here in rural Hawaii is that you don't need much irrigation.
Yeah, so it really depends on where it is you're setting up your homestead. However, we would recommend setting up on the windward side of an island, meaning the rainier, greener side of an island. And in that case, there's an abundance of rainfall typically throughout the year. And so the rain is going to water your crops and your orchards and take care of all of that for you. If, however, we're talking about somebody ending up on the dry or leeward side of the island, there you would need quite a bit of irrigation, and it's not quite as sustainable. And that's why we've always chosen to live on the windward side. We plant our fruit trees and gardens throughout the year, but the single best time of year to plant out new orchards and gardens is the rainy winter season. And that is because you have that ample supply of water, and it just helps everything to take off and get established in a much healthier way.
Now, what about some of the mainland typical fruits and vegetables? Can you grow them here?
You can, however, it's really going to be hit and miss. So in one area, you're going to find that these particular vegetables do really well, and in another, they really aren't going to do well here, and vice versa with fruits. You can grow, let's say persimmons and cherries and things up higher on the mountain, and down lower, you can just grow better, just tropical things. So every place has its, climate zone where it's happy. However, I would say that for the most part, the tropical fruits and vegetables are really where it's at. This is their native environment, and it's nice to grow things that kind of grow themselves, things that are very resilient. Sometimes we found that in trying to grow certain mainland fruits and vegetables, you really have to put a lot of effort into it, and it can be just too much, especially when there's so many amazing tropical fruits and vegetables that just, are so easy.
Yes, and over the years here, we've kind of grown to appreciate some of the local vegetables and greens and fruits, and so we really enjoy it. Now, another advantage of living here in Hawaii is that it's warm all year round. And that means, for one, that you need a minimal wardrobe. You don't need a lot of variety of clothes.
And that's really nice to kind of simplify your life.
Yes.
Another thing that I really appreciate about that is that it's conducive to living an outdoor life.
That's right.
Something that I absolutely love is to be outside as much as possible. And so that's something that you can do here. Even in the midst of December, Christmas, whatever, you can be out picking your papayas and working in the yard, and it's just beautiful. We love it.
Yeah. Of course, sometimes it might get a little cooler, a little rainier in the winter, but it's still very much enjoyable, very much beautiful and green everywhere.
And we do have portions like, for example, on the dry side of the island, even in the rainy season where you'll almost always have just a sunny day. But on certain other portions, like on the windward side, you can have spells of weather where, it'll be overcast or even rainy every day for a week or something like that. But at least it's warm.
Yes.
And only in rare exceptions, if you live like higher up in the mountain, will you see any kind of cooler temperatures.
Yes, and what I really like about this island, the big island of Hawaii, is that it's so diverse that, if you get tired of one weather, you can always escape to another part of the island, to find maybe some sunshine.
Yeah, so that's something that's been really great because, we're not really big fans of let's say, overcast or rainy weather. And so if you get a couple days in a row here, what we end up doing is we just drive over to the other side of the island. We spend maybe like an hour to get over to a sunnier area. And you know what? There's beaches, there's hikes, there's everything over there, and it's all sunny. Yeah. And then you drive back home and maybe the rainstorm's still going on, but at least you got to get out and enjoy the outdoors for the day.
Another advantage that I really like personally is that there's not a lot of dangerous animals or insects here, so it's really pretty safe here. There are no snakes, no ticks, no lion, tigers, and bears.
Yeah, it's really a very safe environment as far as that goes. You can just feel free to just kind of trudge off into the bushes and not worry about what's there. It's
Yes, there is no poison ivy, poison oak. There's nothing really to hurt you here.
Yeah, so that's that's really great.
Yes.
And while we're on the topic of pest animals, a lot of places, if you're going to be doing country living and growing your own food and all that, there's a lot of animals out there, critters that are going to be trying to steal your food, and
deers,
whether it be deers or gophers or rabbits or even in the tropics, if you're going to look at other tropical locations like Costa Rica or who knows where, you're going to be dealing with monkeys trying to take your bananas and so.
No monkeys here.
Yeah, so really here the only pest animal we have is really the feral pig or the wild pig.
And we do have a mongoose, which is much smaller animal.
Right, but the mongoose doesn't really eat anything and cause any trouble. And the pig, they do. However, just pretty much any fence will pretty much keep them out. So it's pretty easy to keep the pigs out. And
so that's definitely a blessing.
Another thing that we really love about rural Hawaii is the high quality produce that can be obtained from the local farmers markets. It's really overall quite reasonably priced, and there's just all year round, there's just an abundance. We've lived in different places, and some states, have really great farmers markets and locally grown produce, like let's say Central California, etc. However, when we lived in East Tennessee for approximately 10 years, the quality of the produce that was available in the stores was really quite poor overall. And we happen to be total vegetarians, and so the produce is really a big issue for us as far as the quality of the food we eat. And so the produce here is really pretty amazing overall. Yeah. And the prices are quite reasonable.
Yes, of course our goal is to grow, pretty much everything our own. And at some point, as you know, we have grown, most of our fruits and some of the vegetables. But, in this transition time, we really appreciated having all the fresh produce from the farmers markets here.
Definitely. So Hawaii is also a fantastic place to produce your own power. and especially when it comes to solar power. Hawaii's location is such that it is really not that hard to produce all of your energy needs. And so that's something we've done in the past, and that's something we'll be doing as we develop this new homestead at the present time.
Now, Hawaii is also a great place for harvesting rainwater for all of your water needs.
Now, when many people consider homesteading and water needs, rainwater harvesting is not typically the first thing on their list. But in Hawaii, it often is. And the reason is that we have an abundance of rain. And so at our last homestead here, we had approximately 90 inches of rain per year, which was quite a lot. And that was almost double what we had in very green foothills of East Tennessee. But here in our new location where we're going to be developing this new homestead, we have about 150 inches of rain a year. And all of that translates into an abundance of water for everything that you need. It's relatively easy to set up, and it's really a good quality solution for...
Yes, and it's really a default here in Hawaii. It's something that a lot of people are doing here just because a lot of people live in rural areas and they don't have county water, so it's the default here.
Yeah. A couple of additional advantages are that Hawaii has some really amazing air quality, especially on the outer islands of Hawaii. That is a factor worth considering. In addition, as I've alluded to before, but yet it's a big priority for me, is the fact that we can be outdoors and have an outdoor lifestyle all year long. So we're hiking, and you can be swimming and snorkeling and bicycling and all of these things. So many things in Hawaii, can be expensive. I mean, as far as living goes. However, all these nature activities are typically very low cost or even almost nothing. So it's really a great way to be healthy and enjoy life if you love an outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah, so really the cost of your living here in Hawaii depends on your lifestyle. And you can make it as expensive as you want to or as simple as you want to. If you are going to live in the nature and grow your own food and enjoy simple entertainment of nature, then you'll make it here.
Definitely. Now it's time to talk about a few of the disadvantages, because with every place there are pros and there are cons, and there are some disadvantages to country living here in Hawaii.
Yes, and we're not trying to sway you one way or the other. We're simply sharing with you what we've learned in more than 10 years living here, and in hopes that it will help you. The biggest one is, of course, the higher cost of living here.
Yeah, and as Marina shared, it really very much depends upon your lifestyle. If you're kind of into the keeping up with the Joneses and all of this sort of thing, and everybody having entertainment, etc., restaurants, all this, you're going to pay probably a good bit more than you're used to, and it can be very expensive. But like she said, we live simply, and we find that everything is more than adequate, and our income goes plenty far.
Yes. What are some other aspects of higher cost living here in Hawaii? What are some of the things that are very expensive here?
Well, there are quite a few things that are expensive. However, a few of them that come to mind are higher gasoline prices, higher grid electric prices, if you do not have solar as an option, and higher rent overall. Things like rent, and then coupled with that, you have sort of the double whammy of the decreased income. Another thing that costs more is just the items that you're going to be purchasing at the stores. Now, items, let's say at a place like Target or Costco, they may be comparable, but a lot of the smaller shops and let's say construction materials and things like that, you're going to pay more.
Mainly because of the shipping.
Right.
Everything has to be shipped here.
And now there are some ways to get around that, and one of them, for example, is Amazon.
Yeah.
And products online you can often get for the same price you'd pay in the mainland, and you can get them here with free shipping. And so that's a lifesaver in some ways.
Definitely.
So another disadvantage to living here in rural Hawaii is limited employment opportunities. There just aren't that many jobs, at least well-paying jobs. And the jobs that you come here with and are used to, in many cases, they're going to pay you less than what you were earning previously, coupled with the higher cost of living. That can be quite difficult for a lot of people. In addition, there are more taxes overall and more regulation in the state of Hawaii than in many other comparable places. Like, for example, a lot of states are popular with homesteading, places like Texas, places like Tennessee, places like Idaho. There are going to be higher taxes here in Hawaii, and there's going to be more regulation as far as, for example, what you're allowed to build on your land or following building codes, etc. That can be an issue. And so that's something worth considering.
Another disadvantage is that maintenance here never stops.
So keep in mind that because we don't have serious winters here, everything is growing all year round. And that can be an advantage and a disadvantage. It's an advantage because your gardens are producing fruit and vegetables and all this sort of thing, but a disadvantage because all the weeds continue growing. So you're mowing all year round, you're weed eating all year round, and things can get out of hand pretty quick if you happen to go away for a few weeks for vacation or something like that.
Yes.
So it's really important not to start really developing a property here until you can really be sure that you can be around to maintain it. A lot of absentee owners come here and they'll bulldoze and they'll do this and that, and then they'll go away for 6 months and come back and it's just like, it's a forest again, or at least well on its way to becoming one. As far as maintenance go, another concern would be rust. And things do rust here quite a bit more than you would expect, even being some distance from the ocean. At present, we live right on the ocean. Our last place was a mile from the ocean. Our new place is, I don't know, not very far, maybe a third of a mile from the ocean. But everywhere there's rust. The salt air finds its way even a mile away and causes its damage. And so certain things you can do to sort of limit that is preferably build with materials that are more resilient, and also try to cover things, make sure things are well covered with paint, etc. But rust is an issue, and it even affects things like your electronics and your computers and all of this, television, whatever it is, it will tend to lead to a shorter lifespan for those items.
So generally, don't buy very expensive items because you might need to replace them.
Yeah.
Another issue is mold and mildew. There's a lot of moisture in the air here, and if you don't have proper ventilation in the house or proper sunlight exposure, there could be problems with mold, including even your clothes. So you want to make sure that your drawers are open sometimes, and you rotate your clothes even in the closet, because if you just leave things standing, at standstill, mold will find its way there.
Yeah, that's especially true for leather items, and it is more true of places that are higher up in elevation, because as you climb from the ocean sea level up higher up the hillsides, you have more and more rain, actually less sun, and so you have more of this environment that mold loves. We've been thankful to set things up in such a way that hasn't really been too much of an issue for us.
Yes, in our previous home, we definitely didn't have much of an issue with that.
And a big part of that is going to be setting up your home so that you can catch the trade winds coming off the ocean, and that ventilation along with the lots of sunlight and keeping the drapes back and open. All of those things help a lot.
Yes. Now, what about crime here?
Well, property crime is actually higher here than it is in many states. And so that can be a concern. That's basically an issue of your things walking off and leaving your property without your permission. But violent crime actually is quite low, relatively speaking. And so you have that balancing act. And also, it really depends on where you live. So some areas are much more known for property crime, and others are not so much. And the further you move out into the country, typically you have less and less of those issues. And also, as you move into the more expensive areas as well, you have less and less issues.
Volcanoes.
Yeah.
That's a disadvantage, right?
Yeah, so every state has risks, right? Some places are known for their hurricanes, some places are known for their earthquakes, others for their, whatever it may be, right? Flooding, etc. Here in Hawaii, we have volcanoes. For the most part, just the big island of Hawaii is where the really active volcanoes are. Although, you can never say for sure that there aren't risks elsewhere. But there are approximately, I believe, 7 volcanoes on Hawaii Island. And there's only a couple of them that are really, truly at risk of an eruption.
Yeah, so
And
most
so-
of them are dormant.
Most of them are dormant. The one that's near us here, or at least nearest to us here, last estimated to have erupted approximately 4,000 years ago, so they tell us. But on a positive note, most of the volcanic activity on this island is a very slow-flowing lava, and it's such that it definitely can be avoided if there is an eruption. You typically will have time to get out of its way, but there is risk to your property.
Yeah, and we should know that best. And some of you may wonder, the place where we bought right now, is it far away from a volcano? And like Ryan said, the nearest volcano has erupted 4,000 years ago. So actually we're in the zone that is the safest for volcanoes right now.
Yeah. And as Marina said, there are these lava hazard zones, and you can look at a map and you can see which zones are at risk and which are not, and you can use that to help guide you as you purchase property.
Definitely, because a lot of people would look at Hawaii and look at some of the prices of land and say, wow, can't believe it, it's so cheap. We can buy property here, but you have to know that property is cheap because there are a lot of risks with it.
Yeah, and volcanoes is just one of them.
Yes. And another disadvantage, and probably one of the last ones we'll talk about, is isolation.
So a lot of people have a concern about Hawaii or living in Hawaii that they'll get island fever. And I suppose some people do. Personally, here on the big island of Hawaii, which is well over 4,000 square miles, we have never experienced island fever. We've lived here 10 years. Island fever essentially is the sensation or that you've got to get out of here and go somewhere else and travel. And really, in our experience, we have sort of like the reverse island fever. Whenever we leave here and go somewhere to the mainland, as soon as we get there, we want to get out of there, get back on a plane and come home.
Yes. Yes, and I think that a lot of this island fever really comes from smaller islands. I don't know anybody here, I haven't met anybody here who had island fever on the big island, really. Some people may miss some of the city attractions, but in reality it's very big, and if you really like outdoor life, you shouldn't be bored here.
Yeah, I've never been bored, never once.
Yes, but another part of isolation is that we're so far removed from the mainland that, like we mentioned, a lot of things cost more because of shipping, and a lot of things that you would like to buy online wouldn't even want to ship to Hawaii. So that's another disadvantage.
Yeah. So sometimes if you want to, let's say, get something like, let's say, IKEA furniture or who knows what, you're going to need to either go on a shopping trip to a place like Los Angeles and take your items to the dock, and they'll put them on a pallet and you'll see them in some weeks, and they charge you a freight fee. Or another option is you can go through a middleman, and the middleman will, sometimes they have contracts with specific retailers, like an IKEA only middleman, and they will go to Los Angeles or send their people, and they will shop for you and get things and bring them back. And of course, that results in this example, it would be like double the price that you would normally pay. So those are factors.
And of course, isolation also means that if you move to Hawaii, but your family is on the mainland or some other place, then you obviously will be missing them. And a lot of people really move away from Hawaii mainly because they miss their family.
And this seems to be especially the case with grandparents. People retire, they move to Hawaii where they wanted to live for a long time, they come here, and a lot of times they don't last because the grandkids are still back there somewhere. But
so I guess if you want to move to Hawaii, you have to weigh those advantages and disadvantages and see if you'd like to come out by yourself or try to bring your family with you.
Yeah, but in reality, I mean, truth be told, a lot of people don't last in Hawaii. Hawaii considers itself to be sort of a revolving door. There's people arriving all the time and leaving all the time as far as those who are residents here. Yes. And
so Hawaii is definitely not for everyone.
It's definitely not for everyone. We certainly don't recommend to people to move here.
Yes, we don't want you to think, oh wow, we better move to Hawaii, and then in a couple of years you think, oh my goodness, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
So definitely weigh all the advantages and disadvantages before you make such a big decision.
Yeah, definitely something to prayerfully consider.
Yes, but for us, we have never looked back and we loved it here. And even with the disaster with lava and volcanic eruption, we still wouldn't change moving here.
Yeah, so 2 years ago when we lost pretty much everything we owned in the lava disaster, we had to start over. And so we seriously considered moving elsewhere. And really, honestly, the whole world was under consideration.
Yeah.
We've traveled quite a bit, and so we considered a lot of the places we'd been in the past, and but yet we felt that this was the place to stay, and we're glad we made that decision and are making our new start here again.
Yeah. So some of my personal things that I like about Hawaii the most is that it's a beautiful place. It's warm year-round. It is a very simple place, which I really appreciate. The people are simple. People are very happy, very friendly here. So those are some of my favorite things about Hawaii. What about you, Ryan?
Well, I like the unpretentiousness of the place. There are a lot of people here who don't need to feel like they have to show off. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of people who don't look like they have anything, but in reality they do. And they'll drive simple pickups and wear simple old clothes, and I really appreciate that about the place, and it's just nice not to have that keeping up with the Joneses sort of environment, and yes. People can just be happy with the simple things of life and just enjoy the sunshine, and that's something that I've really appreciated. Oh, also, I just absolutely love being out with all the fruit trees and the gardens and seeing what they're doing every day of the year, and this one's flowering, this one's fruiting, and let's go pick breakfast. And picking the fruits from the trees is probably my favorite pastime in life.
Yes, and there's such a variety of amazing fruit here. And that's, another very big advantage of living here.
So at our last place, we planted over 120 different varieties of fruit and nuts. We eventually settled on closer to somewhere between 80 and 90 that we really loved. But I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. And I was still planting. But now we have this large homestead land that we have so we have years and years of planting ahead of us, and it's just really exciting.
Yes, we're really excited to start growing things on our new property, and pretty soon we'll make another video with an update of what's been happening on our farm. Well, friends, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe if you're new here. If you would like to see more videos from us, click notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. And comment in the comments below if you have ever been to Hawaii or if you have ever considered moving to the tropics. And until next time, aloha and God bless.